jump into this chart. Now, since the first thing I mentioned was in conjunct parties, this eclipse is actually having in conjunct parties itself, all by itself. Love the metaphors. I honestly don't know where my stuff comes from half the time. I'm just kind of like, okay, I guess that worked. But first we have an in conjunct. Okay, first let me start the energies of the lunar. I'm wanting to jump all over the place, but we're just going to start very first off with this lunar eclipse. Now, the reason this is a lunar eclipse is because it's a full moon eclipse with the nodes. Now, this energy going on here, and the reason it's with the nodes is it's like kind of in that degree, but having these energies, having an opposition between, because the full moon is always in opposition, between Gemini and Sagittarius, so it's going to be between the energies of speaking and communicating pretty much what we know. So it's going to be a whole lot of that energy wanting to come out, but also it's going to be opposing this energy where there's a lot of light wanting to be shed on broader perspectives and things that people aren't talking about, and really trying to seek out our own truths. So it's like there's going to be like this feeling like subconsciously that we really need to talk about this stuff, but there's also this pull that we need to learn more about it before we talk. So it's like very like how can I put this? It's almost like kind of what I went through yesterday with the feeling of almost having like a word vomit thing where you cannot control it and it just flies out. I really hope no one else goes through the channeling thing that I do, but there's probably going to be a few people that go through that depending on what your chart looks like. Because I know right now the moon is really close to being conjunct to my natal sun, which is probably why it's already happening. But besides the point here, getting into this energy, once we understand that that's kind of like the baseline of this eclipse is what's going on, is this tug of war between wanting to do that, we have the first thing to look at here, which is still bringing up the depths here. This is like the hidden, our subconscious and everything, but it's in our relationships. Now, having, I'll explain in conjunctions with this one. So this in conjunct here is like trying to bring a blessing down to us to kind of help us with the opposition energy, but at the same time, since they're in these signs that don't quite get each other, it's not quite in opposition, but it's still kind of like with this energy, it's going to be air mixing with water, which if you think about it, it's kind of like a tsunami effect. It could easily like really get up to that scale, or it can be very cleansing rain, just like kind of blowing on you. It depends on how you let it affect you. Are you going to let it sweep you completely away, or are you going to learn to kind of go with it and be cleansed by it? Because having this in conjunction here, especially with Venus being in Scorpio right now, it's almost like we are wanting to communicate these very deep subconscious thoughts with people that we are close to, with these relationships that we feel are very deep, that we feel are very important to us. And certain secrets are going to start being pulled out because just subconsciously stuff is going to start coming out. And this is the reason in conjuncts are important, is because they're at a very tight degree. They're like 2 degrees or less. So it's like a very powerful pull. A little more powerful than oppositions, which this opposition's at an exact degree, which is why it's a full moon. So it's kind of packing the same punch here. But with these, what you want to look at is, especially since the actual natal map of this has an ascendant of Scorpio, there is very Plutonic energy just overriding this entire eclipse. And obviously things are very highly linked to both of the planets in Scorpio during this eclipse. So if you're really feeling these energies heavy, even if you don't have very heavy Plutonic placements in your chart, you're going to be feeling this very heavy because it's an overarching energy. Like this is going to be the energy of that day. It's very Pluto heavy. And then especially in your relationships, with that moon coming in there, it's going to be like subconsciously you just want to rattle off and start talking about things and trying to clear away things. And then there's also going to be stuff that's kind of coming up that's been hidden that might make you kind of step back a little bit and start collecting a lot of information. But you have to be careful, because if you look at this energy here, we have Neptune trining the Venus as well. So it's bringing in this energy of being compassionate while we are going through this, because it can be very easy, especially with this lovely Aries energy over here going on, to get a little volatile when we're getting upset if something's coming out and it's not exactly what we thought it was. We need to learn to release expectations, very much so right now, because if we're holding on to expectations, that's what's going to create the flames. Because if you look at how this is trining Venus, and it's trying to be like, okay, let's be a little more compassionate in our relationships. I know that certain and it looks like Neptune is going to be going direct by this moon too. I need to look at that actually. Where's my book? Because if it's going direct, that's going to be a whole nother energy. Okay. Yeah, Neptune goes direct the day before the lunar eclipse. That is going to be a lot of energy. So literally everything that we've been feeling with this Neptune retrograde, like I said, I don't look at these charts until we pull it up here. Everything we've been feeling with this Neptune retrograde is all of a sudden going to start shifting. Yes, we're still going to kind of be in a shadow period, getting through, like, you know, the murky whatevers from the retrograde, but this shift is going to have a very heavy impact on this eclipse, because we're getting a big planet all of a sudden going direct the day before the eclipse. And this really has a lot of meaning here, because you have to think about this. If this Neptune going direct the day of the eclipse is squaring off against our nodes here, because if you look at it, this Gemini is also the same for Sagittarius. They're going to be at the same degree with the nodes. Within 1 degree, which is a very... Okay, Owen, you're going to type a paragraph when I'm in the middle of me trying to say something. I just figured it out. Give me a second. But, this is a very close degree square. Like this T-square to the nodes is very close in degree on the day of the eclipse. I think it's actually very close to being maybe 1 degree or less. Like it is like a very close degree here. And with this hitting our nodes, what's going to happen is this push and pull we're actually feeling with the eclipse itself is going to get a whole nother layer of this direct energy from Neptune smacking it. And then on top of that, it's like all these things we've been learning that are not the truth, that we've been having things being pulled over our eyes, all of a sudden it's just going to explode. This is reminding me of some of the stuff I channeled yesterday. It's going to be like this feeling of what the hell kind of thing, because a lot of stuff's going to start coming out and you need to be thinking for yourself right now. I didn't read anything you said yet, Owen. I'm on a thingy. But this energy coming through here with it going direct and literally punching our nodes. And you have to realize, if you look at this chart, Neptune is still technically in the 4th house. It's still sitting in the house of the soul here, while it's smacking the houses of self-worth. Actually, where would this be? It's going to be, yeah, the self-worth and the 8th house. It's like T-squaring those houses. So the soul houses of what we consider our values and what we consider the hidden from us is all of a sudden just going to be getting hit with this square energy, and it's going to be very polarizing for people, because some people really do not want the wool taken off of their eyes right now. And for the people that are trying to take it off with this energy, or they're being pushed into doing it and they're like really trying to work with it and other people aren't listening, it's going to become kind of volatile. Because if you're looking at this right here, this energy between Neptune and the moon is squaring, which means that this is actually squaring the nodes as well over here. I already told you guys that. So you have two squares from Neptune hitting Gemini. This means this information that we're collecting on an interpersonal level, and possibly even what we're digesting from the media, is making it to where we're either going to decide to follow media or follow our truth that we're learning from our subconscious. There's going to be two different types of people coming out of this, and you're very easily going to see them. There's going to be people changing their points of view. There's going to be people growing. There's going to be people wanting to apply new knowledge. If you're looking at these people, this is where this compassion comes in the relationships. If you're seeing change right now, that means that those people that are trying to change, see if it's change, even if it makes you uncomfortable, their own change, if it's changing for them like their growth, or if they're changing into being way more pushy, if they're changing into being a lot more stubborn with their views, it means that they're on that other side of the coin, and you need to watch out for that energy because it's very toxic. Because with this square happening with the moon and our feelings, it's like our intuition is going to be telling us, hey, some people really aren't being nice right now, and I need my boundaries up. It's pretty much what our intuition is going to be jumping in and telling us. Is if our emotions are getting attacked by people, especially in the relationships that we're trying to be compassionate and understanding in, because this is what Neptune's trying to teach us in this. We need to realize with this strong pull, with this inconjunct here, that anything that really balks against our boundaries is showing us that they really honestly don't care. And we need to see that truth right now. We can't be like having the wool pulled over our eyes. And I also heard too that this is a really great time for breaking addictions. If you have certain addictions you need to break with this energy, if you really put your mind to it with what's going on here, especially when it's coming to your self-value, it's coming to how you feel in your soul, especially if the addictions come from long line of family addictions, this would be a really good time to break those, because instead of you feeling like the answers aren't there for you, they're going to start being like pushed to the surface. Because Gemini's energy is like this surface energy. It tries to pull things up. And since it's sitting in the 8th house, and that's what everything is sitting in currently, it's trying to pull up all of these things, especially when it comes to our relationships and our communication. It's really trying to pull that Scorpio energy up and allow this new way of expressing it, instead of feeling like it needs to be buried deep down inside and people don't need to see it. It's going to be more commonplace for there to actually be more deeper conversations. Now, if you're trying to have deep conversations with people and they keep trying to go surface, it's trying to show you that those relationships are kind of getting on the wavelength of not being able to serve you, especially if you're trying to explore these sides of yourself and they really don't want to hear it. It's kind of like letting you know, okay, I need to keep mental note of this. I need to, like, not necessarily kick this person completely out of my life, but I need to keep a watch on how this person affects my energy. Because if they still bring you up and they're just not ready to really talk that deep, that's one thing. But if they are draining your energy, then this is going to be very noticeable, because this is going to, I'm not going to lie, this energy is going to be very draining with this moon. Some people are going to get extremely hyper just because of the fact, depending on where they have this Mars in their chart, because in this chart, Mars is in the 6th house and Aries is ruling the 6th house. This is very fast-paced energy for having routine. So if we're having all this energy sitting in the routine house over here, it's almost like we can easily go into burnout if we're not careful. especially since it's trining the sun over here. It's like trying to say, hey, you know, like we don't need to burn out. We can kind of step back a little bit. We can go into self-care. And that's where this trine is coming in, because it's the 6th to the 2nd house. It's trying to show us we can take care of ourselves. We don't need to be putting everything into everybody else right now, because we still have all these freaking squares sitting over here, like I was saying, these beautiful squares sitting over here with this Capricorn energy. Now, with this happening, all this Capricorn energy is sitting in the house of communication, which is going to put this restrictive feeling on communication, and that's why it's so hard to keep pulling. That's why there's all this opposition coming through. With this moon in Gemini, it's like we really want to communicate these things. But what's interesting is it's trying to say, I don't want to communicate the surface, and that's what the fight is here. That's what the big fight is, because what they want to communicate is the deep. This is what's actually having this beautiful sextile over here to these. They're like, we want to communicate deep shit, and we only want to deal with people because this is the first house. Like, this is going to be easily seen on people. This is going to be them. Like, you're going to feel the energy smacking your face from people, if you're aware. Like, if you're not and you're just kind of like in a bubble and you don't know what the hell's going on and you're just like, you know, what the fuck ever, you're not really going to understand it. But if you're kind of in tune with what's going on right now, then you're going to be feeling these energies hitting you. You're going to be able to tell that there's certain people that are wanting to talk on these deep levels, and these are the people coming in trying to show you with this compassionate energy, because this is trining both of these, because it's in right in between them. So the Neptune is also adding this compassion to these deep conversations. So having both of these, because this is a trine, so we have all these sextiles to the communication and we have this trine to the communication. If it's deep and meaningful conversation, and it's bringing all this compassion to it. Now, like I said, if anything is surface knowledge, and anything's being communicated in a surface way, it's going to rub people the wrong way. It's just how it's going to go here. Because having this energy right here, Saturn is on this descendant in this chart. Not Saturn, Uranus is on the descendant in this chart. It's still in retrograde. But it's still barely in the 6th house, like by less than a few seconds over here. So it's like barely in the 6th house. It's like it's getting ready to move up into like that relationship energy, but it's still sitting in our routines and our health. So this is going, once again, back into the 2nd house. Everything's trying to go back to self-worth and deep communication right now for this moon. And it also means you're having deep communication with yourself, because if you're not, then you're honestly just letting this go to waste, because you're not seeing what you need, which is a big thing with this moon too. And that's what's coming from this Uranus right here, having another opposition to the sun. The sun is like our heart. It is like that inner child. It's the creativity. And like we're realizing our self-worth comes from the things that we neglected in ourselves and the things that we had to hide behind the protective ego. And having this in conjunct, it's like hitting it like, no, you don't need to hide it anymore. You need to bring that shit out and show everybody. And you need to do it every day. It's what's good for your health. It's what you need to get better. Whether it's your mental health, whether it's your physical health, spiritual health, emotional health, being able to tap into this and start bringing it out is going to be very powerful right now. And certain people aren't going to be okay with that. Like I said, if you're seeing people changing, see what kind of change it is. If it looks like this change where it's finally they're becoming themselves and they're embracing it, then that is like a very beautiful energy. But if they're really fighting it and they're becoming very nasty and like this other true side of them's coming out instead, don't lie to yourself. You're getting this direct energy being shoved into this eclipse for a reason. It's probably going to hurt. Like emotionally, it is going to hurt to be sitting here and seeing some of these people getting nastier when you thought they were better people. But you can't lie to yourself. Like, that's the worst possible thing you can do for yourself right now, because you have all of these planets in Capricorn making like this very tough energy to Uranus right now, because this pull that's happening with us needing to go deep and needing to change, it's hard. It's not easy. And we need to be able to accept it, especially since this is conjunct with Ascendant. This is like us being hit with our shadow work out of nowhere, too. Like, there's certain things, and that's what heals the inner child, is like being able to look in and be like, you know, I've been really neglecting these parts of myself. And it's going to have, like I said, direct effect on your health since it's still in the 6th house. And there's a reason for these things. There's a reason that this stuff is sitting in these places. It's trying to let us know. I mean, even Neptune's barely in the 4th house, but it's still in the 4th house. It's in there for a reason. And plus, having Chiron in the 5th, healing the inner child, because Leo, the sun, usually rules the 5th house. And it's like healing the inner child, healing our creativity, like bringing peace to that instead of like being asshats. Like, I mean, Ruby over here, show your ass. It's like instead of being that way because we don't want to heal and being bratty children, it's like starting to heal that so that way the child is able to evolve in us and actually get the attention it needs. Because, like I was saying, this Uranus has this really tight opposition to the Venus in Scorpio. And if those relationships that you're seeing, like I said, these are relationships, your shadow work, what's coming out on you personally for everyone to see. This presence that's changing in you and other people is going to be tough. It's going to be work. And if people aren't appreciating the work, then what's going to happen is there's going to be this big tug of war, and it's going to be that same feeling that's going on with the eclipse. So it's almost like our personality that's being thrown in the forefront and our shadow work is having a really close opposition, and so is our values, like what we truly value and what our subconscious is trying to bring out, like what are our emotions. There's like this huge pull with these things, and then there's in conjunction between both of them. Like, this is very powerful energy, and it's hitting these houses where you can't get away from these things. It's like direct effect on your health, your self-worth. What is now going to be shown to the world is this part of you that you kept hidden, and you're not afraid to communicate it anymore. You want it in your relationships. You're tired of hiding this part of yourself. Yes. Anna, the messages that are starting to come out, this is a build-up right now. Like, we're in the shadow phase of this starting up. So anything that we're getting right now, like I got a burst of it early yesterday, anything that's coming out right now is going to keep building. This is like the beginning of it. This is the crescendo leading like up to like this big event right here. And once this hits, this energy is going to be sitting with us, because how all of these are with this pole here is wait a second. This right here, this one very specifically is forming a sextile to Pluto and Jupiter. This Neptune energy right here, this is compassion for ourselves. I know a lot of this is dealing with relationships, but we need really deep compassion for ourselves as we're going through these transformations, because it's really going to build, especially with this energy with Jupiter. I mean, it's not exactly in the sextile, but barely a few seconds out of it, so I'm still going to count it, because Jupiter has like this expansive energy anyways. But with this energy coming in, it's like all these transformations we've been working on. If we've been working really hard and we're feeling very drained, we need to give back to ourselves right now. And that's what this Neptune direct is trying to like show us. Yeah, like a lot of stuff was kind of pulled back. But if you're doing anything that's detrimental to yourself, be kind to yourself and stop doing it. because it's almost like it's trying to say, like, you know, all this work you're doing isn't going to be worth it if, like, your physical body gives out. It's kind of like what I learned yesterday. It's like all that stuff came through, great, but now I need to take care of myself because of how it affected my body. Like, I can't, like, just go, okay, I'm going to do the same thing. And in a way, it made me change up how I'm actually doing certain routines. It made me go to sleep earlier because I wasn't feeling well. And then that made me wake up better because I went to sleep earlier. So pretty much jump started me doing stuff better for my body by going through that. But really pay attention to the things you need to do, because these energies right now of Taurus and Capricorn are really trying to get you to focus more physical and taking care of your health with this, while the Scorpio energy is like on your person as well. It's the house of the body, like what like is put forward and everything. And people are going to be seeing your health deteriorating if you're not taking care of yourself. It's going to be very prominent. It's going to be coming out in the way you talk. It's going to be coming out with how you're dealing with people in relationships, as well as your relationship with yourself. Like, are you ignoring yourself or are you really trying? Because having this moon energy, the way it's sitting here, and there's another thing with Gemini I want to talk about too, especially having Scorpio, Mercury going at the same time. Gemini isn't just this communication between people here. It's like this other side kind of communication as well. Because Mercury doesn't just, you know, sit with one thing. I mean, you have to remember Hermes was able to go down into Hades' world. He was able to traverse the scorpionic energy and go back and forth between them freely. This means that with this Gemini energy, it's very easy to get downloads right now, especially if you have Gemini placements, if you have Sagittarius placements, if you have Scorpio placements. You're going to be getting some download central happening right now, because things are going to come to you in different ways. With me, it's literally, if I open my mouth, stuff is coming out. Like, it's just happening. And it's because I have 11th house Gemini energy. It's like this, well, actually, I have 12th house Gemini energy. Gemini rules my 12th house, but my sun is actually in the 11th. So having both of those energies, my spiritual house is literally ruled by Gemini. So the way this spirit is going to talk is through my freaking mouth and my hands. Like, so like if I touch things, like it's like I'm getting those kind of messages, and it's really freaking weird. But you need to understand how these different things are hitting you in your chart. Like what place is being, like what house is being ruled by what area, and that's what I'm going to do with you guys. I'll pull your charts up and look at those, because it'll probably explain why you're getting certain things hit the way they're getting hit. But definitely, if you've been ignoring any part of yourself, even without realizing it, it's going to be put in front of your face, and you're going to have the choice made. Like, are you going to start taking care of yourself as well? So there's like a lot going into this eclipse. It's probably why I kept hearing reset over and over again, is because this energy right here is like all about resetting a whole lot of thinking, a whole lot of what you're doing with yourself. It's just this energy of like a big reset button on things that were not working. It's like, we're gonna just start this shit again, fresh slate. We're gonna do it right now, and it needs to stop whatever isn't working. And the people that aren't doing that are pretty much not hitting a reset button. They're hitting this button like fuck off for everybody else. They're hitting a fuck off button, and it's like they're only in their own very selfish world right now. So yeah, and that's how this stuff is going to be hitting. That's why I'm saying with this Neptune, because it's temptations and addictions, and it hitting us at this soul level. And if you're dealing with anything with family, if there's stuff coming to you, or you're having to get into these deep communications, it's going to be very easy for you to want to escape it. So that's one thing you have to be careful about, and that's why it's really having this push-pull with our moon. Our intuition is telling us, don't escape this, and it's really hard, and it hurts sometimes because this is going to be a painful transformation for a lot of us that are willing to do this reset. If we're not, I already talked about the asshats. I'm like over asshats right now. But since this is the main kind of energy I'm getting from this chart right now, also another thing, if you learn something and it changes your point of view, do not be afraid to express it, because even if someone's like, oh, you're a liar or whatever, it doesn't matter what they're thinking right now. You need to express their truth and let people take it how they're going to take it, because if you learn new things, that's growing, and you need to express it. People that, if they learn new things and they don't express it and they bury it right now, are going to become very detrimental to themselves as well as the people around them. So don't allow your pride to get in the way of you actually expressing truth right now. And that's where that's where this square is hitting Neptune right now. Don't let pride get in the way of the truth. Don't let your pride pull up an illusion because you want to stay in it. You need to be able to come to the plate and be accountable for anything you've done, no matter how big or small. You need to be able to be honest with yourself and those around you that you actually care about. So, now that I've done that, we are going to go ahead and who wants me to pull up their chart